Hello everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for Monday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm meteorologist Dave Percy. Up first, we've got winter weather advisory out here for the Yukon Delta, as well as St. Lawrence Island and the Bering Strait coast for tonight into tomorrow. For gusty winds, snow and blowing snow could reduce visibilities to less than half a mile at times. And farther to the north, these are wind chill advisories here going on with gusty northeast winds, at least over 15 miles an hour sustained down along the northwest coast. Temperatures below zero, looking for wind chills to run anywhere from 50 to 55 degrees below zero. And these wind chill advisories are out through Wednesday. And looking at satellite imagery, cold across the north here. North slope temperatures, lows were around -40, say at Umiat Airfield. And the cold air now spilling southwestward into the Bering Strait, while warm air starts to try to push northward. Got this rather strong low here just east of Adak, a front pushing up something like this, and then kind of scooting across the southeast coast, or the Gulf of Alaska there. And that pushing the next storm, low center right about there, and that already bringing the winds up to gust 35 miles an hour here at Heidelberg and Ketchikan after this first system went through and rain tapered off today. So the winds are increasing again with this one off the coast before the rain really arrives with it. And on the chart, there's the rain from this old system that moved through. And then we've got this 987 millibar low now approaching. That's what's tightening the gradient up here, as you can see, and kicking those winds up already. Pressure's falling, southern panhandle, and as I mentioned, winds on the increase. A little bit of rain or a little bit of rain or snow in Juneau today, but not much, only 300s, and then snow falling at Haines this afternoon. But Hoona had about 1/3 of an inch of precipitation, and Sitka about 2/10. And that was it, really not a lot of heavy precipitation there. And moisture coming up, riding over the cold air. Snow, Portage, that finally slid down Turnagain Arm into the Anchorage area today, as well as crossing the Kenai Peninsula. Seward had snow, Kenai, Soldotna, and just a few flurries down at Homer. Kodiak in the rain there, about 1/4 of an inch worth during the day today, and lighter amounts along the Alaska Peninsula south of this warm front. With temperatures into the upper 30s there, but ahead of the warm front in this tight gradient on the north side of this low. Pertoloff still in the cold air, and had whiteout conditions today with St. George Island seeing winds gust to 62 miles per hour, and visibilities are 0 to 1/4 mile in snow blowing snow, and winds not so strong over on Alaska. Dutch Harbor had gusts 45 miles an hour. Otherwise, Nikolsky had a peak gust of 55 miles an hour. And winds starting to pick up now along the Alaska Peninsula as this front approaches, but not gusting really nothing more than 35. And also up there with the Cape Newenham and Kipnuk, seeing gusts of 45 miles per hour already. And the tightening gradient here kind of increasing the wind, especially through the higher terrain here in the interior, but Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta, 25, 35 mile an hour northeast winds with a lot of temperatures below zero. Looking at the forecast for tonight, this area of moisture continues to increase and expand northward, possibly reaching Stebbins, St. Michael, into Unalakleet, and back across maybe the southern Kuskokwim Valley areas. But winter weather advisory, as I mentioned, for the Yukon Delta. And Hard to say how much we'll get into Bristol Bay here, this southeasterly flow. I wouldn't look for a lot. Temperatures warming up, so mixed rain and snow, say for king salmon. Still a chance of some moisture here along the North Gulf Coast in the form of rain or snow, but I wouldn't look for a lot of snow in Cook Inlet or the Madawaska-Susitna Valley, and also wouldn't look for much to even get into the Copper River Basin. This storm tracks northward off the southeast coast here, and windy and wet over the southern areas, and not so windy and drier over the north. Another mostly clear night for the Brooks Range on out to the Arctic coast, with temperatures well below zero once again, and colder air starting to slide in toward Adak. Probably will change the rain and snow back over to snow, with scattering out snow showers over the western Aleutians. And for tomorrow, that front kind of elongates here, and that southeast flow keeps rain or snow along the North Gulf Coast, Kenai Peninsula. Still a chance, Cook Inlet, a much better chance of some light snow along the eastern slopes of the western Alaska Range, and look for a band of snow here along this front. Again, amounts won't be too heavy, but it'll kind of link up with that trough, the old front here, and snow and blowing snow, St. Lawrence Island, maybe gust 40, 45 miles an hour. Low pressure is slowly weakening, but really not moving too much. North of Atka Island there, with just scattered showers, mostly of snow back to the west. And that system moves on out of the panhandle quite rapidly. Another one starting to approach, and just scattered showers by Tuesday afternoon. And the outlook for Wednesday, let me back up one here. This storm right here for Wednesday pulls due north, and by Wednesday afternoon is into the southwest interior, and the front pushing eastward. Pretty gusty winds, south central Alaska, turning an arm, kind of a Chinook wind pattern developing, where temperatures will rise into the mid-30s. Rain extending eastward into the northern panhandle. Snow, maybe a little blowing and drifting up here over the Seward Peninsula, but nothing too serious. Scattered showers, the Aleutians, scattered snow showers out west, and a little more wind. Lows for tonight, 30s for the southeast coast, and 25 to 35 below. North slope, milder on the Arctic coast, and still well below zero, 15 to 25 or 30 below here. North of the Alaska Range, lows around 10 below to a little above, 6 below. So we've got below zero temperatures all the way to Nunivak Island. Lower 20s for the Pribilofs. Highs for tomorrow, staying below zero on the Arctic coast. Lower 40s here for Bristol Bay. Upper 20s south central Alaska. Upper 30s to mid 40s for the Panhandle. And then lows the following morning, starting to warm up, not so far below zero in these areas, staying above zero here in the southwest. And lows in the lower 20s, south central Alaska area, but coldest up over the upper Yukon Valley and the North Slope. And then the afternoon highs for Wednesday afternoon, with that southeasterly wind flow, some downsloping. Notice these lower 40s here. Sparavon down in toward Iliamna, and King Salmon 44 for Kodiak.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
IFR out here, central Bering Sea, right into the coast and southwest interior. Also IFR across portions of Bristol Bay, the Alaska Peninsula, Kodiak, and up the eastern slopes of the western Alaska Range. IFR, Southside Kenai Peninsula, into Prince William Sound, especially on the east or the western side of the sound, on up into Copper River Basin a ways. Marginal VFR up toward the upper Yukon Valley. Otherwise, pretty good onto the north and northwest. Southeast coast, marginal Lynn Canal, Glacier Bay, Elfin Cove to IFR down south. And in the afternoon, that retreats back to the southeast here. So say from roughly Petersburg on down to Stewart. Looks like it'll be IFR with marginal elsewhere. VFR continues, except for this patch of marginal VFR up over there along the Yukon River here. But marginal VFR trying to spill over the Alaska Range, but definitely across southern Alaska with some areas of IFR, but pretty isolated. And then still the big area out here to the west, into the west coast and the southwest mountains. And for Wednesday morning, IFR Bering Strait, right down along the coast here into Kuskokwim Bay, actually into Togiak Bay, almost into Dillingham. King Salmon in the marginal VFR zone, south side or Pacific side of the peninsula and Aleutian Range, IFR up to Kodiak into Kamishak Bay. And for Wednesday afternoon, IFR continues along the southwest coast with some areas that pushes inland. Western Seward Peninsula, northern Bering Sea, VFR breaking out over the western Aleutians near Adak on out and marginal elsewhere. And then we've got IFR lingering over the northern panhandle, marginal VFR down to Dixon Entrance, IFR right up across the Gulf of Alaska into Prince William Sound. And for Anatuvik tomorrow, VFR, good VFR day for Adigan as well. And Lake Clark and Merrill, IFR, especially on those eastern approaches, probably be better off to the west. And rainy, marginal VFR, lowest also on the eastern entrance. And for windy, there'll be clouds, but of the VFR variety. And for Isabel, marginal VFR. Mentasta looks rather marginal. And Tanita also could be marginal at times throughout the day, Tuesday. Portage, IFR, and Chilkoot and White, marginal VFR to start with, and then becoming VFR probably about a late afternoon. And the freezing levels at the surface, again, hugging the North Gulf Coast into the northern panhandle down toward, the Stewart area, and then 2,000 to 6,000 feet here off the south coast, 2,000 feet southeast of Kodiak and off the map out to the west. But you can see the surface here getting back up toward the Pribilof Islands, so everywhere to the south should rise above the frost point tomorrow. And for icing, areas of light to isolated moderate here from Atka Island, maybe Adak, out into the central Bering, and then some of that will get into the southwest coast, Hooper Bay, Tuksuk Bay, and Nunavak Island. And some of this could spill into northeast Bristol Bay here with that southeast flow. Nothing really serious, just isolated moderate at times, rime variety type icing here in across Cook Inlet, Kodiak, Kenai Peninsula, Prince William Sound, trying to push north and to the northwest a little bit. And then leftover icing possibilities here, mostly of the mixed type, as that weakening trough swings through the southeast coast. So that'll be lessening throughout the day. Jet stream showing big upper low here over the Bering Sea, and still some ridging over the eastern interior, but pretty weak. And then a very strong jet out here coming across toward the western Aleutians. 9,000 feet, 20 to 35 southwest interior, 15 to 20 in the northeast, 25 to 30 around this low, coming back around, and 35 to 40 across Kodiak Island, 45 southwest coast. And then about the same here, 35 knot winds along the southwest coast, windier in the west, not so much wind in the east, 15 to 25 there, strongest south of in the southern panhandle, and 35 knot winds for the Fox Islands. And moving on to turbulence, out west we've got some areas of isolated moderate possible, but more likely you'll see moderate here for the Alaska Peninsula back to the Fox Islands. Kodiak Island right up into the southwest interior, a swath here, northern Seward Peninsula to the Kobuk Valley, up to the northwest as well. And after the break, I'll be back with the marine forecast.
It can be many miles long, from 1 to 100 feet high, traveling at 400 miles per hour. This ocean monster is known as a tsunami, and it can wreak havoc on coastal populations and landscapes. A tsunami is a series of ocean waves caused by any large and sudden disturbance of the sea surface. Tsunamis can be generated by landslides, volcanic eruptions, or even meteorite impacts in the ocean, but they are most often caused by an earthquake where there's a sudden displacement of the ocean floor. When that happens, there's a transfer of energy from the sea floor to the ocean, causing waves on the surface to radiate outward in all directions. In deep waters, these waves may not even be detectable. But when the tsunami enters shallower waters, the wave speed slows and its height increases. The water along the coast may recede noticeably. A large wall of turbulent water, called a bore, may also form. When the tsunami hits, it may come ashore like a fast-rising flood and strike with devastating force. The series of waves may continue for hours. The first one may not be the last or the largest. For your safety, know the potential warning signs of an incoming tsunami. A strong earthquake that causes difficulty standing. A rapid rise or fall of the water along the coast. A loud ocean roar. When you're in a coastal area, it's important to keep alert for messages from local officials, such as lifeguards, police, the U.S. Tsunami Warning Centers, and NOAA All Hazards Radio. If you find yourself in a location of a tsunami strike, here's what you need to do to stay safe. Keep calm. Walk or run to higher ground, 100 feet above sea level or 1 mile inland. Do not drive. Keep roads open for emergency vehicles. If you cannot move to higher ground, use the stairs to get to the 3rd floor or higher in a sturdy building. Follow all instructions from local officials and stay out of coastal areas until authorities issue an all clear. Tsunamis can strike any coastline in the world and can affect locations thousands of miles away from where they formed. They may be uncommon, but the devastation they cause makes them a deadly force in nature. For more information on tsunamis, go to the following sites.
Tsunami, a killer wave, speeding across the ocean at 400 miles an hour. It smashes into land, destroying everything in its path. Tsunamis do not have a season, but they can strike any coast at any time. If one forms close to the shore, the shaking of the earth and a loud roar may warn of its approach. But when a tsunami forms across the ocean, it can take hours to reach the shore, enough time to warn people to move to higher land. Over the past 20 years, NOAA has developed DART, a real-time monitoring system that provides data for forecasting tsunamis. The DART systems have been deployed in earthquake-prone areas throughout the ocean, including the Pacific and Indian basins. A DART system combines a surface buoy and a sensor on the ocean floor. This sensor detects changes in water pressure and seismic activity and transmits the data back to the surface. If these changes indicate a tsunami may form, the buoy signals an alert via satellite to the tsunami warning centers in Alaska and Hawaii. Back at the centers, scientists plug the data into pre-existing models. These models predict the height, the arrival time, and the coastal locations that the tsunami will hit. Watches and warnings are issued to the affected communities so preparations can begin. Today, 47 DART stations are positioned all around the world, ready to detect and warn coastal communities about the next potential tsunami. With the DART system and tsunami warning centers in place, we are now better prepared to predict a killer wave before it strikes.
December 26, 2004. What began as an undersea earthquake in the Indian Ocean ended as the most deadly tsunami in recorded history, with nearly 240,000 lives lost. This was a devastating wake-up call to coastal communities and tsunami research. Prior to this event, only 6 of NOAA's Deep Ocean Assessment and Reporting of Tsunami, or DART, buoys were in place. Scientists could only predict tsunami arrival times, not flood potential. And there was not a global tsunami warning system. Today, 10 years later, we can tell a different story. U.S. and international coastlines are far better prepared for such a catastrophe, thanks in large part to research and technology developed at the NOAA Center for Tsunami Research at Pacific Marine Environmental Laboratory. NOAA's DART array is now complete, with 39 buoys operated by the National Weather Service's National Data Buoy Center. Along with 21 international buoys, this array can measure a tsunami wave as small as 1 centimeter in the open ocean and provide these data in real time to forecast when a tsunami may hit the coast and how much flooding there will be. NOAA scientists and engineers are currently testing the 4th-generation DART buoy that will be able to measure local tsunamis as well as distant ones. Flooding forecast models incorporate local topography and historical tsunami data in order to more accurately predict exactly how a tsunami might behave when it reaches shore. NOAA has 75 site-specific models that can provide high-resolution flooding forecasts for effective response and mitigation during a tsunami event. NOAA has gathered data from every tsunami since 2004 to improve its forecast models. Today, it operates the world's only real-time tsunami flooding forecast system using DART data to accurately compute flooding forecasts. The NOAA Tsunami Warning Centers make tsunami data available on the internet and issue advisories, watches, and warnings through the Emergency Alert System and via NOAA weather radios. While it is impossible to prevent a tsunami, we are now much better prepared to detect them and predict their paths and impacts, so those in coastal communities can take the steps necessary to safely protect themselves.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Today's sea ice analysis. Those strong winds continuing to move it westward here. The open water edge getting closer, ever so close to St. Matthew Island. It'll probably make it there over the next couple of days. But with the warmer temperatures coming up into Bristol Bay, look for ice to start. Look for a reduction in the ice here during the upcoming week, and also for Cook Inlet with the warmer air and those gusty southerly winds coming in. Also look for the ice to diminish. Coastal water forecast, west-southwest, 35 knots on the south coast, seas 14 feet. Small craft advisories on the north coast, and then lighter up there toward Yakutat, north 25, Lynn Canal, 15 knots, Stevens Passage, south 25, Clarence Strait. Outlook for Wednesday, southeast 10 to 15, central and southern inside waters, Lynn Canal, north 15. And small craft advisories out of the south here, 25 knots on the south coast, south to southeast, 30 knots with 10 to 11 foot seas. Prince William Sound, northeast 15, North Gulf Coast, east at 20, northeast 20 for northern Cook Inlet and southern Cook Inlet, northeast 30 knots, right on into Kamishak Bay, 11 to 13 foot seas there. Wednesday's forecast, edge it up a little here north of the Forelands, 25 knots, still out of the northeast, no change for the southern inlet. Stronger winds, east 40 into Kamishak Bay, southeast 40 for the Barrens, minimum gales out of the southeast here for the North Gulf Coast with 15 foot seas. Prince William Sound, increase in the winds there, east 30, seas 7 feet. Kodiak Island, east side here, southeast 25, northeast 25, Shelikof Strait, and Sitkinak to Castle Cape, southeast 30 knots, and then south to southeast 25 to 30 for the peninsula, east 30 for Bristol Bay. Southeast 30 the next day for Bristol Bay, and south 25 here, Bering Sea side of the peninsula. On the south side, southwest 30, turns south at 30, up towards Sitkinak, right up in along the eastern marine zones here, Kodiak, Shelikof Strait, southeast 25. Western Aleutians, Kiska on out, northeast 30, 22 foot seas. Gales here from Amchitka, and on the north side of the Adak-Atka area with north to northwest winds there, and then South to southeast, 25 to 30 for the Fox Islands. And the outlook for Wednesday, southwesterlies 20 to 25 knots there for the eastern Aleutians, seas 6 to 14 feet, and west-southwest 15 to 20 here for the central Aleutians, really laying down, and small craft advisories farther out west. Southwest coast tomorrow, south of Nunivak Island, east 30 knots, north of the island, northeast 30 knots, right up to St. Lawrence Island. 35 out of the northeast, St. Matthew Island, Pribilofs northeast, 30 knots down from today. And for tomorrow, or for Wednesday, southeast 20 knots there for the Pribilofs, 25 knots here south of Nunivak Island. Northeasterlies continue here. Yukon Delta coast, 40 knots now for St. Matthew Island, and St. Lawrence Island, 30 knots out of the northeast. Checking out the eastern Beaufort Sea coast, 15 to 20 knots. Central coast, east 15, all easterly here. Kind of a switch around from today. And then from Cape Beaufort all the way down to the Bering Strait, northeast at 20. And then those pick up to brisk wind advisory levels there from, say, Wales up to Cape Beaufort, northeast 25, northeast 20 on the west coast, and northeast 15. Central coast, and no change from Tuesday's forecast for the eastern coast. And for tonight, we have this system rolling up into the off the coast of the Panhandle there, so winds will increase, could see gusts 50 miles an hour, gale force winds, rain in the south, and not much precipitation in the north. And a weak trough keeps a chance of moisture here along the North Gulf Coast, but it's not going to make too much progress northward or northwestward. Out here, though, winter weather advisories for the Yukon Delta, snow areas of, and then rain for the Alaska Peninsula, and bouncing ahead to tomorrow, continuing to feed moisture into southern Alaska with warming temperatures. And then for Tuesday, look for a Chinook wind across southern Alaska.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.